Evan Russell, a young man with a broken heart who lost his father to a heart attack, is now taking care of his sick mother, who was diagnosed with cancer just a few months later. One night, when Evan goes to check on her, she asks how he is doing and even tries to cheer him up with a joke. He smiles, but then he realizes that she has stopped breathing while still looking at him. This breaks him, and he cries, saying his final goodbyes, even knowing it is too late. The day after the funeral, Evan finds himself in the restaurant where he works, crying next to his only friend Tommy. After some time, he decides to go home, but is approached by a drunken man who accuses him of hitting on his girlfriend. The drunk man tries to hit Evan with a bottle, but he reacts quickly, landing a punch on the assailant's face. Shortly after that, his boss calls him for a talk and informs him that he is fired. Evan decides to go home with Tommy to continue drinking and mourning the death of his mother and the loss of his job while they discuss their ideas and discover that the drunk man has followed them home. The man threatens to sue them, especially because he knows where Evan lives. Evan considers leaving town, fearing being sued or attacked in the future, as he has no job or family. Tommy encourages him to spend the night with a girl, and despite his initial fears, he ends up in bed with a blonde woman. However, the woman abandons him when she discovers that Evan has no romantic feelings for her, despite everything they went through. After a long period of intoxication, Evan is awakened by knocks on the door and, looking out the window, sees the police. The officers leave thinking that no one is home. Evan then seizes the opportunity to leave, organizing a blind flight to Italy. When Evan arrives in Italy, he drinks and befriends two heavy drinkers named Tom and Sam, who also indulge in illicit substances. Evan's life is serene for the following days as he enjoys the beautiful countryside during a road trip with his new friends. When Evan and his friends arrive in a nearby town, he notices an incredibly attractive young woman named Louise, who also looks at him, developing an instant connection. Later that day, while spending time with his friends at a nearby tavern, Evan meets Louise again and decides to introduce himself. However, she rushes him and invites him to leave his friends and drink with her. Evan is surprised and excited by her sudden interest, but keeps his composure and invites her out the following night. Louise leaves him at the bar, leading his friends to mock him. The next morning, Tom and Sam decide to travel to Amsterdam and invite Evan to join them, but he declines, explaining that he prefers to stay in Italy in search of a new beginning. Later that day, Evan walks around the city looking for a job and a place to stay until he comes across a flyer for a local farm that offers a room in exchange for work. He then visits the local farm and meets the owner, Angelo, who hires him immediately and shows him the space. Evan quickly becomes friends with his boss, casually asking about Angelo's wife, who died in a car accident. Evan then gets lost in an alley and encounters Louise again, seizing the opportunity to invite her out. After she initially declines, while Louise enters an art museum, Evan follows her, and they continue talking as if they had known each other for months. Inside the museum, Evan discovers that Louise is a student of evolutionary genetics. While passing by a painting of a naked woman, Louise asks Evan what he thinks of the artwork, to which he responds that the woman looks quite attractive. Evan, feeling disinterested, invites Louise to dinner at a restaurant that evening. They go out for dinner and get to know each other better. Evan learns that Louise has traveled the world and dated several guys, none of whom she can maintain. He humorously writes a love letter that she asked him to write before they could buy a bottle of wine, and when she reads it, she smiles. As they drink wine, Evan talks about himself, and she praises him for doing new things in Italy despite his lack of confidence. A little later, they go to a nearby balcony by the beach and enjoy each other's company. Louise admits that she struggles to believe in God, and that there is much mystery in the world, including within herself. She tells him that she is a part of undiscovered science, with a great deal of complex biochemistry and wild hormones, which confuses Evan. Then, she tells a funny anecdote, leading him to kiss her. They kiss on their way to a motel before finally entering the room and having sex. At midnight, Louise wakes up like a monster and flees the motel, having consumed a cat along the way. She transforms into an unknown kind and even burns her skin in the sun, but uses medication to slow the process and maintains her human appearance. Evan, on the other hand, wakes up alone and goes to the local farm to start his day of work, being patiently guided by Angelo. Later that day, after work, Evan takes a brief walk hoping to see Louise again. Luckily, they live in a small town, and he quickly finds Louise at a nearby store. Louise makes a joke about him, pretending not to know who he is. Evan begins to suspect the night they spent together until Louise unexpectedly laughs and comforts him. They spend the afternoon together, walking the streets, eating ice cream, and enjoying each other's company. Later that night, Louise invites Evan to her apartment. While Louise prepares the meal, Evan asks about her profession while playing with the rabbits she rescued from lab experiments. When Evan decides to play music, he discovers that Louise can speak several languages because her phone contains many multilingual songs. When Louise joins Evan on the sofa, she steals his cigarette, telling him to stop smoking, leading him to call her fantastic. However, when Louise stands up to check on dinner, she realizes she is transforming again. She asks Evan to take care of the food while she takes a shower. Inside the bathroom, she begins her terrible transition into a terrifying monster. Her spine stretches, and her skin covers with fur, which explains why she is surrounded by anatomy books and scientific texts. After the small transition, she controls this with her medication, preventing her from completely changing. However, Evan finishes the soup, and the two enjoy dinner together. Evan invites her to go to the beach with him, but she declines, explaining her skin problem. The next day, Evan wakes up and finds Louise at his side. He then covers her carefully. He kisses her goodbye and tells her she needs to work. When he goes to the bathroom to urinate, he sees a syringe on the floor, which leads him to question her. On the farm, while working with Angelo, Evan learns a lot about farming. They have a cordial conversation about women during which Angelo states that Italian women are the best, to which Evan responds that there are many beautiful women in the United States as well. Evan also admits that he is dating someone who he thinks is strange at times. Later that day, Evan and Louise have dinner at a local restaurant when Evan unexpectedly confronts Louise about the syringe. She says she uses it to inject medication and claims that she is not a junkie and does not have any disease. Evan feels embarrassed and asks if he can take a picture of her with his phone. When she asks about his family, he becomes upset and refuses to discuss the subject with her, diverting the waiter's attention to take a picture of them. Louise seems uncomfortable posing for the photograph, trying to avoid looking at the camera. The shot reveals a blurry image of them, and Louise asks about his family. He still refuses to share, and just as he is about to photograph her with his phone, Louise leaves and heads for the nearby beach. A fight ensues when Louise believes he would boast about having been with a foreigner to his friends and that he cannot be intimate while she is only asking about his family. Evan then reveals that his mother died of cancer last week, shortly after his father passed away. Evan also shares that he felt useless for not being able to help his family and that he was wasting his life. Louise then tells Evan that she has 2 different eye colors, which she hides with contact lenses to appear more attractive. He challenges her honesty, but she assures him that she has never lied to him. The next day, when Evan is surprised by a hybrid tree that produces lemons and oranges at the same time, Louise realizes that despite her treatments, her mutation is growing uncontrollably. She then enters a cave while slowly transforming and conducts a peculiar ceremony to interrupt the process, drawing symbols on the walls with the rabbit's blood. But this does not seem to work. She ends up devouring the rabbit, allowing her to maintain her human form. That night, Evan visits Louise at her apartment as usual, but finds her sick and exhausted, and he tries to cheer her up. He stays for a while to take care of her. One morning, Angelo offers Evan a day off. He then suggests that they go fishing, but Angelo declines because he has other commitments. Evan then spends most of the morning alone, walking around the city. He notices an American causing a disturbance on the waterfront and decides to do something for Louise. He goes to the art gallery and buys a book in which he writes letters to her. Louise then appears and invites him to a secret location. When Evan rows in his boat, Louise sings loudly, as no one seems to hear her. They row to a cave filled with crystal clear water. The two seem to grow closer each day, kissing under the tunnel and playing together. They have dinner afterward, but Louise's skin condition worsens, and she abruptly leaves, saying she needs to work early the next day. On her way home, a man sees her in pain, chases her, and tries to molest her, believing she is intoxicated. However, when he prepares to forcefully attack her, she transforms into a beast and kills him instantly. The next day, Angelo calls Evan for an honest talk. While they converse, Evan sees how much Angelo loves his late wife, as he refuses to date a single woman at church. On the other hand, Angelo congratulates him on becoming fluent in Italian and advises him to stay safe, as Evan is working as an illegal immigrant and the police will be after him soon. Evan visits Louise's residence since he has nowhere to live but finds her scared. She tells him to leave and forget about her because she wants to focus on her work without distractions. But the truth is that she cares about his safety concerning his irregularity in the country. Evan tries to persuade her otherwise, saying he is willing to give her time and space if she wishes, but Louise stands firm in her decision. Evan is heartbroken because he cannot believe that Louise is abruptly pushing him away. Before leaving, he says his last words to her, declaring his love, although they have only known each other for 5 days. Evan pleads for her to reconsider her decision and reluctantly leaves, hurting his hand when he punches a brick wall on his way out. The next day, Evan returns to see her, upset and drunk, hoping that Louise has not said what she thought. When he hears noises inside and sees blood on the floor, he forces the door open and discovers her in a decayed state of mutation, transformed into a reptilian monstrosity with tentacles, to his horror. As Evan struggles to comprehend the situation, he sees Louise pointing to a syringe, and then the panicked man frantically applies an injection. As Louise returns to human form, she asks Evan to prepare a bath for her. Evan confronts her and asks if she is a werewolf, vampire, witch, or extraterrestrial, to which she hesitates to explain her condition. When she refuses to do so, anguish overcomes Evan, and he runs away. Louise, determined to open up and explain, does not hesitate to chase him. She says she is a 2,000-year-old mutant and shows him an art piece of herself that was painted thousands of years ago. Louise reveals that she is pregnant and that the embryonic cells heal and maintain her age. But once pregnant, she transforms into a new body, something that has to occur every 20 years. On the other hand, Evan understands that Louise used him to get pregnant and then rejected him. But Louise affirms that she had to emotionally hurt him to physically protect him from herself. He then asks about her periods, to which she says she uses adult stem cells from other living organisms, like her rabbits. He even goes out to clear his mind, feeling overwhelmed, manipulated, and deceived. He tries to call Tommy for advice but receives no answer. When Evan sees Angelo praying for his late wife, he understands how much he cares for Louise. After calming down, Evan reunites with Louise and assures her that despite everything, he wants to be with her. Louise then reveals that if she falls in love with someone, her body will generate a chemical that prevents her from transforming, resulting in the loss of her immortality. He asks if she is willing to give up her immortality for him, but Louise declines, stating that she will become someone else in less than 24 hours. Still, he persuades her to take one last road trip before she evolves, asserting that she has no control over the transformation. However, when immigration police arrive, she changes her mind and helps him escape. They get into Louise's car and leave the city, heading to Naples and spending the entire night talking. The next day, they continue to chat while enjoying their remaining moments. Evan tries to persuade her to choose him over immortality, to which Louise responds with kisses until Evan admits that he has never visited a church. They enter the church and discuss science and religion, when Louise suddenly begins to transform in strange but funny ways to the point that someone in front of her mistakes her appearance for a scary zombie. Then, they go to a museum and discover that Louise posed for paintings for many years, and the portrait in Italy was her first human form. Then, they enter a building that used to be a shelter during World War II, where Evan asks about her health and promises that if she stays with him, he will also stop smoking. Louise informs him about the repercussions of being with him and expresses her concerns. Louise then randomly transforms into a monster, but soon regains control and warns Evan to stay away from her before it is too late. However, Evan insists on staying with her. In the morning, when she approaches her evolution, she takes him to the ruins of Pompeii, where Louise recounts the history of her family, which was destroyed by a volcanic eruption. Her voice returns to its original tone when she confesses that she inherited her unique ability from her mother and that her pain limit was still developing at the time, allowing her to survive the lava. Louise informs Evan that she does not want to die or watch someone die, which is why she chooses to live in different bodies every 20 years instead of being with someone. Evan then understands why she does not want to be with him and promises that he will miss Louise. She becomes increasingly terrified, fearing the creature she might transform into, knowing she has the potential to kill. Still, she hands him a bottle of wine as a weapon and encourages him to run for his life if things get worse. When the moment arrives, Evan makes one last attempt to plead with Louise, promising that becoming mortal is a good thing and that she will not be alone anymore. Louise sits in his lap, asking him to tell her something about life. Even terrified and broken, he narrates his experiences and the wonderful sides of human life as his voice falters upon hearing the horrendous sounds of her transformation. He refuses to look at her and keeps talking. However, when dawn breaks, Evan gathers the courage to look at Louise and realizes that she has maintained her human appearance while remaining calm and determined. She holds his hands and watches him with total admiration. In the end, when Evan understands that he will lose Louise, he is also certain that his life will end, as he will not abandon her. However, Louise decides to stay with him, sacrificing her immortality.